All right, here we go. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. This is not what we had planned to start this newscast with, but we have just received, as I told Kira moments ago, you may have been listening to me, some of the actual filing documents, what they're using in the case against Chris Brown and Rihanna, and we're finding out this is much more serious than any of us had anticipated. Let me set this up for you, all right? This is the night before the Grammys. They're driving home from a party. They're getting ready for the next day. It should be a big day for them. Instead, they get involved in some kind of argument, which anybody can have, but this one, according to police, turned much more serious, much more violent. I will read to you now from this Sunday, February 8th. This is the search warrant and affidavit that we've just gotten our hands on right here. Brown was driving a vehicle with Robyn. Robyn is Rihanna, by the way. That's her real name. As the front passenger in an unknown street in Los Angeles, Robyn, listen to this, picked up Brown's cellular telephone and observed a 3-page text from a woman who Brown apparently had a previous relationship with. This sets off the problem. It's a verbal argument ensued, and Brown pulled the vehicle over on an unknown street, reached over to Rihanna with his right hand, opened the car door, and attempted to force her out in the middle of the road. Brown was unable to force her out of the car because she was wearing a seatbelt. When he could not push her out of the car, he took his right hand and shoved her head against the passenger window of the vehicle, causing an approximate 1-inch raised circular contusion. So that was the first bruise that we've been reading about on her face. Then Robyn turns to face Brown, and he punches her in the left thigh with his right hand. He then drives away in the vehicle and continues to punch her in the face repeatedly with his right hand while steering the vehicle with his left hand. This assault causes her mouth to fill with blood and blood to splatter all over her clothing and all over the interior of the vehicle. I read on. Brown looked at Robyn, that's Rihanna, and stated, in fact, let's put this up. I think we were able to put this one together. This is one of the things that caught our eye. He says to her, Raj, if you got the graphic, I'm going to beat the bang out of you when we get home. He says to her, you wait and see, he goes on to say. Rihanna then picks up her cellular telephone and calls her personal assistant. She doesn't answer the phone. Then he goes on to say to her this. All right, you're reading that one, right? That's where he says, I'm going to beat you, boom. Let's go to the next one now. He's quoted as saying this, so say police. I'm on my way home. Make sure the cops are there when I get there. All right, that's Rihanna now. Pardon me, I misspoke. That's Rihanna, even though it says Robyn F., saying to her personal assistant, I'm on my way home. Make sure the cops are there when I get there. This statement was made while the greeting was playing and was not captured on a message, says the police affidavit. Now, after Rihanna faked the call, Brown looked at her and stated, let's put this one up too. This goes right to the heart of the matter. You just did the stupidest thing ever, he says to her. Now I'm going to kill you. Now I'm going to kill you. Brown resumes punching her. She interlocks her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to try and protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and her face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the barrage of punches that are being levied upon her. This is the picture that we had not been showing you until now. The reason we had chosen not to show it is we were waiting for the police to actually file charges against him, making this now evidentiary material. It's actually a piece of evidence that's being used in this case. I'm going to continue. Brown continued driving, and he observed his cellular telephone sitting on his lap. She picked up the cellular phone with her left hand, and before she could make a call, it placed her on a headlock. He placed her in a headlock with his right hand and continued to drive the vehicle with his left hand. I mean, this thing continues. She reached up with her left hand and began attempting to gouge his eyes in an attempt to free herself. Brown bit her left ring and middle fingers and then released her. Brown continued to punch her. She turned around and placed her back against the passenger door. She brought her knees to his chest. This is concluding now. Placed her feet against Brown's body and began to try and push him away. Brown continued to punch her in her legs and her feet, causing several contusions. And finally, Rihanna began screaming for help, ran from the vehicle. A resident in the neighborhood heard her plea for help and called 911. There they are, the details of the case. Let's bring in our guest, Brooke Anderson. from Showbiz Tonight on HLN. Ashley Banfield from In Session. Ashley, are you there? Let me begin with you. A lot of people had thought that this case was an argument between two people in perhaps a very difficult relationship. From a legal standpoint, what strikes you about what I have just read?
Well, what really stands out, Rick, that wouldn't normally stand out in this kind of a search warrant affidavit is the detail. This is what you might even consider a talking indictment. That's kind of lingo for prosecutors who say, load that thing up with everything possible because now it's public record. It's remarkable the amount that Rihanna was able to actually remember and articulate in her conversations with police officers. And what's really important here, Rick, is the details are actually corroborated by forensics, the blood in the car and on the clothes, the text messages that went back and forth, which, by the way, that's the reason for this search warrant. This was a warrant to get the cellular records from all of the phones involved. And now those text messages, those phone calls out and in, and also the messages that were left and the calls that went from the police officer's cell phone on the scene will all play into this case because they corroborate the detail that Rihanna actually provided herself.
It's amazing. Look at the reaction that we've gotten on this already. Give me a shot of the Twitter board if you can, Robert. Look at this. I'm just going to scroll through. Look at all this. These are all comments that have been coming in just since we started doing this newscast. And a lot of them for questions for you, Ashley. Look at this one. Hey, Rick, ask Miss Banfield what the maximum sentence that Chris Brown could get and hopefully will get, this viewer says. He belongs in jail, coward. Let me tell you, there's a lot of them like that, by the way, Ash.
I got the answers for you on the assault charge, which, by the way, is not just a simple assault. This is a felony assault. The actual wording of the assault is likely to cause great bodily injury, which means the intent of the assault was to cause great bodily injury. And the maximum there is 4 years. And the maximum on the threat is 3 years. You add that up, and you got yourself 7 years.
This is not a conviction. Let me repeat.
Correct.
This is not a conviction. This is simply a charge. He is innocent until he's proven guilty. But because he's a public figure, because he's an entertainer, this now plays out in the court of public opinion. Can Brooke Anderson, someone like this Chris Brown fella, survive something like I just read where I said, let me find that part again. He then drove again. The assault caused her mouth to fill with blood and blood to splatter all over the clothing while he struck her repeatedly.